We're going to go ahead and move on. For those of you who haven't seen the agenda is up behind me and on the screens and available online. We'll be talking about the director's report, the interagency treatment tracker, do agency spotlights with the Bureau of Land Management, talk through regional framework panels, regional investment highlights, and then we will conclude with some closing comments and talk about our October meeting. So with that, I want to introduce Patrick Wright, the director of the Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force.
All right, thank you, Chief Tyler. So I'm going to make this mercifully brief. I know folks really want to hear about the dashboard, but I do want to put the dashboard and some of the other things that we're doing in a little bit of context, both from respect to timing and the framework we're developing. This is just to remind you of where we are in our schedule. We alternate, as many of you know, between Sacramento meetings and regional meetings. The next regional meeting that we're all looking forward to will be October 5th and 6th in Reading. To be candid, we're kind of taking a chance in October in Reading, but we're hopeful that we'll continue to be successful in getting that meeting planned at a time that'll work for everybody, both weather-wise and fire-wise. But we've got a team. I see Karen here up in front who's helping lead, along with a lot of other folks, to try to make sure that meeting's a success. We'll be back here in Sacramento in December for a meeting that's specifically focused on wildfire resilient communities. That hasn't been in front of the task force for quite a while. We want to make sure you're up to speed on what the task force, CAL FIRE, other agencies are doing there. And then we'll go on to next year's calendar. Hopefully we'll get down to Southern California again in the spring, but that's yet to be determined. The next slide just gives you a flavor. Again, we always want to remind people that we do have a scorecard of all the 99 actions that are in the action plan. All of them are underway. All of them are at various stages. Most of them don't have finite completion dates. They're sustained efforts, so that's reflected in the dashboard. But at any time, if you want to know where is CAL FIRE, headed with this particular item, or the Forest Service with that item, you can look it up. You can also find out what work group is focusing on each of the major deliverables that are in the plan. So hopefully that'll be an asset to you in trying to figure out the couple of dozen agencies that are at work on various aspects of everything we're doing with respect to wildfire and forest health. We also, of course, are tracking dollars. And the next couple of slides remind you that we also have a dollar dashboard that's up on the website. It's simply a reflection, a summarized view of the state budget that's broken down into all the categories that you're familiar with, the various programs, again, from CAL FIRE, OPR, conservancies, water boards, et cetera, to give you a better handle as to where dollars are flowing. So that's up there. On the federal side, they're spending huge amounts as well. And just roughly $1 billion annually in California. That's really hard to get a handle on because it's spread among so many different pots of money throughout so many different forests in California. But we are committed over the next couple of months to try to do a better job of showcasing how state money and federal money are aligned and how we can start better coordinating the big amounts of money that are continuing to flow from both the state and federal side. So you can look for that in some of our upcoming meetings. And then, as Chief Tyler talked about, a lot of money is flowing right now. The next slide just gives you an overview. I'm not going to go into a lot of great detail, but just in the last couple of months, CAL FIRE alone has gotten $250 million of money on the ground. It's really quite impressive. Everything from the school greening program you talked about to wildfire prevention, prescribed fire liability, claim fund is up and running. Huge effort underway. Not an easy task to get this money flowing out there so it can be used quickly on the ground. But it's great to see that CAL FIRE and the other agencies are up to the task. Department of Conservation also has a big role in getting their capacity building funding out there. So it's great to see that. And our conservancies and of course the Forest Service are also spending huge amounts of money on getting projects going and on the ground. And hopefully, again, over time, what you're going to see is a stronger marrying between our fiscal tracking and our project tracking. We have some pretty good fiscal tracking tools underway right now, and you're going to see very shortly our project tracking tool. The goal over time, of course, is to try to align them. A big part of that is through our regional resource kits. As you know, you can go for 3 of our 4 regions, go online, go to our website. You can see the regional profile. You can see the regional resource kits that have been developed in draft for 3 of the 4 regions. And we're going to certainly put a spotlight on the region when we go up to Northern California in October. So you can look for that information as well. And then I think finally, I wanted to say a couple of words about our Forest Data Hub, if I have the right, or Wildfire and Landscape Resilience Data Hub. This is just beginning to take off right now. If you can go to the next slide. We've just finished the needs assessment of that. I'm not going to go into all the details, but this is a huge effort to try to align all the data that's being put together for these various processes that are underway, from the tracking system to the resource kits to the monitoring data that's being put together. So that will evolve over the next couple of years. Just to give you a little bit of a flavor of that and to put our tracking system into context, the next slide gives you a sense of the role of the data hub in trying to align these various systems that we're talking about. And in particular, I think what's most exciting as shown on the next slide is where we hope to get, it's not very far off, is to be able to assess the health and condition of every parcel in California. Right now, we can largely do that down to the 30-meter level, but not just the condition of every parcel in California. When was it last treated? And what were those treatments? Was it prescribed fire? Was it thinning? Was it a fuel break? What treatments are planned for that same parcel? Is it a state park project? Is it a Caltrans project, et cetera? And what monitoring systems do we have in place to assess the effectiveness of those projects on the condition of the landscape? And then finally, with the Planscape tool, what tools can we offer regions to do their own planning that takes advantage of all of this data, all this information on the condition of the landscape, on the metrics that we're developing for success, on our monitoring systems to help plan and prioritize projects. So it's a massive task to try to integrate all of this and to integrate it across a dozen different agencies. But that's the goal, is to develop a data hub that'll be a one-stop shop for all of that information. And it's also meant, as we keep emphasizing, as a tool for regions. It's not a tool for the state of California or the Forest Service to say, Orange County, this should be your priority, Placer County, this should be your priority, but to give the regional folks the tools they need to plan and prioritize their projects. Our job is to assess how effective those are to meeting state and federal mandates and to provide them the tools that are tailored to those mandates to make sure we're getting the best bang for the buck as we can. And so as important as it is, as you'll find in the next session, to track acres treated, it's even more important to assess how we're doing in protecting communities, how we're doing in protecting forest health, et cetera. So that's all to come, but it's important to see that and to hear that so that the tracking system, as good as it is, keep in mind it's just part of a broader tool set that we're putting together. The goal isn't simply to track acres treated, as we've heard from many of you, but it is a very important tool to assess the money we need to get projects done and how far we're going towards meeting our goals. So with that, we hope to see you in person up in Reading in October, and we'll move on to the tracking system. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. Doug, as you mentioned earlier, see, I'm gonna keep going back to you so I never forget. But as you mentioned earlier, and Patrick, you highlighted yet again, the funding that is available and the funding that is coming out is so critically important for this great work to continue to make our forests and landscapes more resilient moving forward. You know, there are a lot of great grant opportunities, not just with CAL FIRE, the State of California Department of Conservation, but with our federal partners as well. And the great grant opportunities that program staff here in the audience and not in the audience get the opportunity to review. It is unfortunate that a lot of times the grants that are coming in, there are just so many great opportunities that the programs are oversubscribed. So to maintain the level of funding we have now and try to figure out ways to achieve additional funding into the future will be critically important to continue this work. The interagency tracker will align and spotlight cross-boundary projects and interconnect landscape scale projects. So it brings, what I wrote here was technology will help create better transparency across the board to all of you in the audience, those online, the public, and the agencies working together to be able to try to place some of these projects in the most appropriate places. Remember, as Patrick talked about the action plan, the 99 action items, anybody who's online is probably already subscribed. Wildfiretaskforce.org is a great place to go and look at those action items moving forward. Sherry, do you have any thoughts or questions?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who are helping on these working groups. It's not without you that we wouldn't have these tools. They're all important. And the time that you're taking, your staffs, your specialists, your communities to test them and try them out, you are all important in this process. So I hope that you find these valuable. I'm excited to see what Alan's got to show us today. And we're looking forward to seeing how we can use this together in the future.
And to my partners on the executive committee, Sam?
Sure. Yeah. And this is Patrick. This is really exciting to be at this place. I remember a year and a half ago discussing this was a dream and an idea. I think to have incredible up-to-date information is critical, of course, for us to be informed in our policies, but it is also important that this data is accessible and shared. I think it's really critical. And I think the content is really useful at many different levels, not just funding, but really some of the data and the mapping. And it is a live document that gets updated. I'm really excited in terms of actually a lot of the work that we're doing at OPR around research, really using data, not only to inform us, but to be accessible. So I really look forward to, and I'll have my team, especially an integrated climate adaptation and resiliency program has an adaptation clearinghouse where they really communicate tools and latest knowledge and information like this for local jurisdictions. It's really important to get it out there, and I'll be happy to have that as, use that platform to amplify this. But it is really critical, and it's really exciting to see that. Congratulations for getting to this point, and for all everybody who had input on this. It is so important for this work.
Thank you, Sam. Any other comments from the executive committee? All right, that is going to roll us into the interagency treatment dashboard, the tracker.